From SBI's Executive Briefing Center in Dallas, Texas, the most watched and listened to content in B2B sales and marketing, it's the SBI Podcast.
Welcome to SBI TV, the weekly show dedicated to helping you make your number. On today's show, I have the pleasure of hosting members of the Right Star Alliance. This is a group founded by three firms that recognize that together they offer more value to private equity firms than each of them on their own. With me today are Brina Garrett, CEO of the Sustaina Group, and her partner Brian Jenkins. Sustaina is a firm focused on branding, naming, and positioning of B2B companies. Adrian Barrick, VP of Partnerships at OpFocus, a company dedicated to implementation of sales and marketing tech stacks. And finally, SBI's own Ellen Wade, an engagement manager focused on driving revenue growth for PE-backed portfolio companies and helping drive equity value for PE firms. Today we'll be discussing platforms, roll-ups, and tuck-ins and how flawless go-to-market execution in all areas is critical to realizing the investment thesis. Welcome, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here and making the trips from the different places that you came from. So let's talk a little bit about platforms and roll-ups. So over the past several years, if you look at trends, and I could probably go back the past 3 years, it's gone from sort of the low 60s of number of deals as a percent of total transactions in private equity to 70, right around 70%, I think in 2019 was the number. So add-ons as a percent of total transactions is going up. I think when you talk to some of the private equity firms and our clients, they're saying the same thing, that this is a motion that they're taking on to add equity value. So Brina, are you, from your experience with Sustaina, are you seeing that same trend?
It's probably the biggest area of focus for us right now. Typically there's a private equity firm that's invested in a business that they see as kind of the anchor for add-ons, tuck-ins along the way. What's interesting about that is it's similar to carve-outs, if you will, because usually brand and naming is a key priority, but there's more going on. So a company can have 5 rolled up together. They can have 2 and 3 coming, who knows? But from the standpoint of our work, we need to think about each of those brands, each of those cultures, each of the brand value they bring to the table, and coalesce all that into a brand strategy and figure out, is there an existing business that should be the lead name? Do the others reverse into that? There's cultural implications to that. Are the other folks going to salute that name? Getting through all that, then thinking through the positioning of the business. But the positioning of the business can and likely may evolve a little bit because of the nature of a platform play. Right? So we have to be open-minded and have some insight to where the business is going, because we need to plan for that in our positioning and messaging work. The other important point is sometimes a PE firm will come in with a thesis already, and they're like, you know what, we've lived this. We're rolling up 3 businesses, and none of them is going to win the name game, so we've got to figure it out. So that's another common thing for us. But inherently, these are kind of disruptive times. And so getting that, the leadership team and the internal teams all coalesced around a new brand can help smooth the transition as all these other work streams are happening at the same time. And we endeavor to do it quickly.
Do you see one as more challenging than the other? Meaning, if a firm comes forward and says, we have these 3 companies and we're simultaneously pulling them together, that's one scenario. The other scenario is, we have a platform and we know we're going to do add-ons. We don't know what they're going to look like yet. Is there a different path that you take, or is one more challenging than the other?
I would say the rolling up of the 3 from the get-go is probably easier.
Okay. And why is that?
Well, because we know the nature of each of those companies.
Okay.
Right? Because the the other ones are you've got this anchor and you have pending deals that may or may not happen. But yet the PE firm and the leadership team is looking for a positioning that they can go and run with. But if we don't know, if we don't have line of sight, that's a challenge. Wouldn't you say? I mean, we've felt that, in terms of like you're dealing with that right now.
Yeah,
right?
no, we've seen it both. And I'd say the biggest thing to remember is that the importance of brand, it can't be overstated, and the importance of brand on the internal teams. A lot of times we think of brand as an external initiative and an outgoing communication initiative. But especially when you're talking about roll-ups, you've got multiple teams coming together under one new flag, and there's tremendous uncertainty on every side of the team. They don't know if their jobs are safe. They don't know what the future holds. And a brand a lot of times can be that binding factor that kind of tells people, it assures them a little bit that, all right, things are going to be okay. This is the new flag we're all under. We're all in this together. And, it's incredibly important. We've seen it time and time again.
Like an airline where they keep one name and take the logo from the other.
Yeah.
Oh, it's tragic.
Yeah.
You see a lot of that happen.
Breeding loyalty internally with the companies coming together is important.
Yeah.
All right, good. Thanks for the perspective on that. So, Adrian, on the tech stack side, and again, similar question for you, is there are a couple of different flavors of a roll-up. There could be immediately we're going to roll 3 companies together, or we're going to have a platform and we're going to do add-ons in the future. We don't know what the add-ons are going to be. What are some things you'd offer to the audience on advice for tech stack and tech planning for sales and marketing?
Well, for all the differences between add-ons and roll-ups and the different transaction types, they share on a tech level a common need to move and merge go-to-market tech, data, processes, and people. And like any M&A activity where you're trying to get different groups of people and data and systems to work together, it's there's no one size fits all. It's complex and it can be nuanced, and we've seen it drag out a lot longer than the PE investors would like. From our perspective, the secret lies in having the person doing the work aligned at both the private equity and the portfolio company level. So regardless of the transaction type, if it's an add-on or if it's a roll-up, if we're aligned to the PE investors, the investment thesis is going to define the big picture decisions. Like, do we merge this data and these systems, or do we keep them separate? And really, we need that kind of strategic decision coming from the investment thesis. At the same time, by aligning with the portfolio company, their tribal knowledge of their data, their systems, their people, and their process, that allows the tactical decisions we need to execute whatever the decision is going to be. And so from our perspective, there's no one size fits all, but by being aligned at both the PE investor and the portfolio company level, we can best accelerate the project and get speed to value.
Great. And I'm sure there are never data challenges.
Oh,
the
never.
Data is perfect every time.
Snap of the fingers, 100% data quality every time.
Yeah. A couple of things you mentioned that I want to ask Ellen about. You had talked a little bit about the strategy, the sales strategy, and you talked about, do we keep the data together or separate? And that may be a decision. It may be a decision made by the PE firm, but I'm imagining sometimes the PE firm says to another consulting firm like SBI, should we run these sales teams side by side or should we run them together? But Ellen, I guess I'll turn a general question to you, which is, what is SBI? How do they see roll-up situations, and any advice for the audience?
Yeah, great question. So it really comes back to the original investment thesis, right? So we all often look at that and see if it's still valid, given that we're going to roll up another company that has now been identified into that new company. So that's really our critical first step, is review the investment thesis with the PE firm and the company's leadership and ensure that the new company really fits that thesis well.
Can you elaborate a little bit more?
Yeah. So because we don't want to jump to conclusions, it's essential that we understand that end game in mind. So for example, if a company is trying to create sales and marketing operating leverage by rolling up multiple companies into one, there's often a large amount of sales talent available in the new company. And so what I would suggest to the private equity firm and to the company leadership is to think about something like top grading talent. There might be new roles, there might be a large amount of sales heads, and we want the right bodies in the right roles so that we can increase productivity of the sales team. So that would be one approach. On the other hand, if we're adding additional sales heads in order to add capacity to an unconstrained market opportunity, we might want to think about something like purchase intent modeling, which enables the sales team to be directed at the right opportunities at the right time in order to drive revenue growth for the company. So those would be two considerations I would have when thinking about the investment thesis and opportunities that I would advise clients on.
Thanks, Ellen. Yeah, I think with what everybody brought up, there's a lot to unpack here. We could probably do a 5-part show, 5 segments, just on here's something to think about with add-ons and roll-ups.
So you're saying we're syndicated?
Yes. Yeah. I think we're going to waiting for episode 2. But let's finish up with our around the horn on advice from each of you, a couple of sentences. For our audience and people who are facing or in the middle of kind of roll up or tuck in or acquisition or platform or whatever they're calling it
these days.
From their perspective. So Brian, why don't we start with you?
Sure. Start earlier than you think you need to. As long as we have a line of sight into where the company is headed or where the investment is headed, we can build hooks into the brand. But the importance and the benefit of a brand on the overall company, it can't be overlooked. So get started earlier because you don't want to rush these things.
Great. Ellen?
My advice would be the word scalability. So when you're thinking about your sales processes like forecasting or your CRM system or your talent process, you want to think about the scalability of that process beyond just the initial investment, since you're going to be rolling in and tucking up other companies underneath that.
Great. Adrian, and other than the data is certainly perfect every time you get it, what advice do you have?
No, you nailed it. So data is equity, and in any of these transactions, you're going to be moving it. And our advice is to treat the movement of data like you would treat the movement of your house. Take it as an opportunity to purge. There's a lot of value to be had in data, but there's a lot of problems that can crop up if you try to keep every single piece of data. So take the time to clean it up before you move it.
Empty the closets, clean out the basement.
Purge.
Got it. Thanks. Brina, bring us home.
All right, bringing us home. So I'm going to take a slightly different tack. If you think about it, these are noisy and complex deals. There's a lot of competing priorities going on, but we all have the opportunity to have a seat at the table of creating a new business. And this business is going to have its day in the sun. And that's an exciting time for all of us, the investment team, the leadership team, all the people. And what the heck, it's fun to do.
Right, and all of us involved in value creation with our clients and partners and friends in the private equity world.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you to all of you for making the trip in today and being with us.
Thanks for having
Thanks.
us.
All right, that was a great show. Thank you for your time and insights, everybody, and we thank the SBI audience for tuning in. Thank you for your continued support. As always, until next time, I wish you good luck as you try and make your number.
This has been the SBI Podcast. For more information on the studio, SBI's Executive Briefing Center, our team, or to schedule a workshop, please visit salesbenchmarkindex.com.